What is the cringiest thing you have done to get a crush's attention? I took in actual physical prints of photos of myself doing what I thought were sexy poses. For some reason, I did these poses in rain boots in my wood-paneled basement. And then at school, I dropped the pictures out of my bag in front of my crush. He helped me pick them up and didn't have much to say about it, so I just shoved them back into my bag. At some point during the rest of the school day, they must have fallen out of my bag. I didn't notice. About a week later, this girl brought half of the pictures to me and said something like, "These were on a bench in a park in the neighboring town. I thought you might like them back." I have many times imagined what their mortifying journey to that park must have been like. I never got the other half back. Someone might still have prints of me posing in rain boots, or maybe I'm an unsolved police case. Hey, remember those pictures we found of a girl being made to pose in some sicko's wood-paneled basement? It was an embarrassing and edifying experience. Now I'm just really glad that I didn't have cell phone picture messaging at the time, or the pictures could have been made it a lot further than just the park in the neighboring town. Thank God you didn't have Snapchat back then. Story 2. 9th grade. The last day before Christmas break, there was a girl on the school bus who was once into me earlier in the year but had now cooled off for some reason. I needed to get the fire going again. I was going to bring mistletoe on the bus, pull it out of my backpack at some point and be like, "Oh yeah, this stuff grows everywhere. I was just picking some of it this morning while I was waiting for the bus." And that's all. What I was hoping for was that she would get the nerve to kiss me since I was holding mistletoe. Well, mistletoe grows high up in the tree. So I cut off a piece of holly and trimmed the thorns off of it because who really knows what mistletoe looks like anyway. So I'm sitting on the bus, she's sitting behind me, and I'm working up the nerve. Then the bus stops. This guy gets on and immediately proceeds to give this girl a rose. And she gets excited and hugs him. And I'm sitting there with a trimmed holly branch in my backpack. Oh my gosh. First heartbreak. Story 3. When I was about 15 or 16 years old, I went on a family holiday with my mom and sister to Italy. We were staying in a hotel with a shared swimming pool, and there were a few other families with kids of similar ages all hanging out. I used to see this girl, roughly my age or maybe a couple of years older, pretty much every day by the pool. Blonde hair, nice body, just basically gorgeous. I think because she smiled at me a couple of times, I convinced myself that she must be the one, and due to boredom, this was before smartphones, the internet, I spent basically the whole week gearing myself up to go and talk to her. I spent days just thinking of ways I could approach her, what to say, building up courage. It was the most important thing in my life at that moment, but it was difficult because she was always around her family or I was around mine. There never seemed to be an opening. Then right at the end of the holiday, the perfect moment presented itself. I was by the pool, alone. Gio was by the pool, alone. This was my time. This was everything. It all comes down to this moment. So what's it going to be? Am I going to be a man and approach her, or spend the rest of my life in turmoil wondering what might have been? So I walked up to her. I smile. She smiles. I say hello. She looks confused. I say hello again. She still looks confused. Tie? Nope. That didn't work either. This is going horribly. Why did I do this? I asked her if she wanted a drink because, of course, if she can't understand a basic hello in English, then a full sentence was definitely the best way to proceed. And she looked even more confused. I think during this whole exchange, which felt like 2 hours but was in reality only about 26 seconds, she had only said the word, "eh?" with a mixture of bewilderment and pity. So I walked to the bar, bought 2 lemonades. I wasn't old enough to buy anything a little more suave. I walked back over to her. I mean, I'm invested at this point, right? No point in backing out now. Otherwise, I would have just made a total fool out of myself for absolutely no reason. I place her lemonade down next to her. She says, "Thanks." So she did speak English. You freaking liar. And I swagger away feeling like James Bond. Until I dropped my glass, which smashed into tiny pieces, most of which went into the pool, which then had to be evacuated while the staff cleaned glass out of it. And I got told off by the lifeguard, right in front of her and her family who had since returned and were all staring at me. Hit me up if you need advice on how to approach the ladies, fellas. I will do exactly that, bro. Story 4. In elementary, I went to school with a couple dudes that were very gymnastically inclined. They would do a double backflip off the swings instead of just one. They would do flips off the monkey bars, standing backflips, wall flips, you name it. The girls loved them. They would sit and be an audience for these guys every lunch almost. I got jealous. I practiced on the trampoline for a few days, tried some handsprings, which I got pretty good at. Forwards, not backwards. Then the next time they were showing off, I joined them. Boom guy number 1 comes running through, handspring, cartwheel, backflip, backflip. Guy number 2 comes bolting behind him, cartwheel into aerial, into backflip. Here I come, cartwheel into back handspring. Oh wait, I don't know how to do one backwards. Land on my neck, wind myself, start crying. Story 5. My own tale of cringe. I had a crush on a guy who I had 2 classes with. It made sense in my 15-year-old brain that intense eye contact would signal to him that I was all in. Every time I had to talk about something, I stared directly into his eyes without blinking. Also, I read that people like large eyes, but I couldn't do makeup since mascara makes your eyes look larger. I would make my eyes as wide as I could. This also meant that if I was talking to another boy, I should look away as much as possible so he didn't think I was into them instead. So the guys in class thought I was really standoffish, and I'm sure he thought I wanted to end him. Sorry, Jack. No, that's the right thing to do. Story 6. Back in high school, I had an absolutely massive crush on a boy in my English lit class. Let's call him Jim. So what did I do? Did I initiate a conversation to ask if he wanted to go to a movie with me? Of course not. That would require rational thought, which my hormonal and romantically starved brain was completely incapable of. Instead, I decided to write Jim a, get ready for this, Harry Potter fanfic. In the story, I was smack in the face, obviously, Ginny, and he was Harry. Yes, really. I actually handed him this masterpiece of literature in class, with a quick, "Here, this is for you," blushing a nice deep shade of red. I realized my mistake almost immediately, but short of yanking it out of his grasp, and I was really considering it, it was too late to do anything. After that, I made it my mission at school to avoid seeing him as much as possible. There was no eye contact and definitely no conversation. There is a happy ending to the story, though. I actually started dating him a year after high school. We've been married for 9 years now. He still has the story. Whenever he wants to tease me, he'll bring it out and read it. I still turn a beautiful shade of tomato red just like I did 14 years ago. Story 7. I was young. Called Crush's phone every 60 seconds for an hour. No answer. Repeat. I figured she'd pick up when she got home and I wanted to talk to her ASAP. Unfortunately, she was on the phone with someone else the entire time, getting the "you have another call" notifications about incoming calls. Just wasn't responding to them. After about the 60th time, she picked up and screamed, "What?" And I tried to worm out of it like it wasn't me that I just called her over and over and over. She didn't buy it, of course. This one still keeps me up at night 30 years later. It would keep me up at night. Story 8. We had a foreign exchange student in my freshman year of high school. She was French and absolutely gorgeous, so naturally all of us boys were smitten with her. She was in choir and sang really well, so I figured since I was a musician as well, that was my in with her. So I busted my back and learned a love song from a very popular French opera. It took me a really long time to memorize, and I thought it would be a bold gesture. So I sang it to her flawlessly and asked her how she liked it, thinking that taking the effort to learn a love song in her language would be a great gesture. Well, that day I found out that she was Swedish, not French. I'm freaking stupid. Story 9. For some reason or another, I'd been bragging about my ability to spit a watermelon seed with crazy accuracy. The young woman to whom I had made these claims, which probably should have sent her sprinting in any direction other than toward me, challenged me to hit her textbook as a show of this alleged skill. I'd like to mention that I did not tell her to stand directly in front of me. Anyway, my first shot went wide. Sailing far off to the girl's left, she said something akin to "ta," and took to lightheartedly berating me for overblowing the scope of my abilities. As she was speaking, I fired my second shot, and against all odds, it landed directly in her mouth. Needless to say, we were both shocked. And in an effort to evoke some humor from the situation, I said something to the effect of, "Oh hey, since we've sort of kissed already now, want to make it official?" Just in case you were wondering, it's definitely not the best idea to suggest tonsil hockey when your intended paramour is already suppressing gags. Story 10. This hurts to remember. One summer break, after my 6th grade, I saw the boy I had a crush on at a festival in my hometown. I had no idea how to get his attention, so I deliberately placed my foot in front of a woman pushing a baby buggy so that she'd run over it. Made a big scene out of it and started to yell and pretend that it hurt really badly. It didn't. Poor woman looked traumatized. That's one of the stories that keeps me awake at night. Oh, and by the way, he did notice that and proceeded to laugh at me with his friends. What was I thinking? Well, that was the universe's sign that you should stop having a crush on that guy. Story 11. Oh, I win. Myspace era story. Let's start at the beginning. I was insanely in love with this girl I'd known since the first day of kindergarten. I told her many times all the way through elementary, and despite this, she treated me as a valued friend. Well, I got to middle school, 7th grade, and I decided I needed to step up my game. Obviously, she couldn't see my dedication, so I deleted all my top friends except for her and proceeded to pour my heart all into my page. Wrote a number of paragraphs professing my love for her, detailing how I would just sometimes sit with my friend and cry because of how much I loved her, but she was a real-life angel walking on Earth. Well, I couldn't keep going on without her and wanted her to love me back. It was incredibly painful to read a few years later. To make matters worse, I went to school the next day and made sure I told all my friends to go check out my page that I'd made some updates. So everyone saw it. I ended up taking it down, and a close friend of hers told me that she would probably be more receptive if I just gave her some space for a while. I got crapped on for a long time after that, but we did end up dating the very next year for a couple months. Story 12. I was awkward in high school around girls, and when I finally got a job, I tried everything I could to meet or interact with them. Ended up working at a video store and met a very good-looking girl checking out a movie. I pulled up her number from the system and called her after I was sure she was home and asked her out. As soon as I started the conversation, I knew I'd crossed a line, but I tried to keep going. It's been years now, but I still feel like a creep for doing that. Story 13. I guess it's not as bad as the rest, but my cringiest story actually worked, so... Anyway, first day of orientation week at university, my friend tells me that there's this guy I have to meet. She just met him because they live on the same floor in residence. She's convinced we'll be fast friends, so finally, we all make plans to go watch the school rugby team play one afternoon. I'm sitting there with a few of my friends, and my friend comes around the corner with this guy I'm supposed to meet. My immediate reaction is, oh my god, I would hit that. But being an awkward little schmuck, I'm so bad at the getting to know you small talk that I so badly want to make with him. And I'm sitting in silence, racking my brain for an excuse to talk to him. That's when I decided to ask him if he knew the rules to rugby. I laughed and said I wasn't sure what was going on in the game, and would he be willing to explain it to me? My friend is giving me this what the heck look because I played rugby all through high school, so I definitely knew the rules. But I couldn't think of any other excuse to have an extended conversation with him, and I desperately wanted to. So I sat there like an idiot, pretending not to understand the sport I'd played for 5 years just to have an excuse to chat. Anyway, we've been together 11 years and just celebrated our 3rd wedding anniversary. Also, yes, I did eventually admit to him that I completely lied about the rugby thing. Story 14. Not me, but I'll post anyway. At the site where I was doing the practicum part of my graduate school program, there was a fellow trainee who I could tell liked me, but never had the opportunity to work with me or have any reason to talk to me. One day I was in the library doing some research and was crouching down, scanning the lowest bookshelf in a stack looking for the book I needed. This girl, accidentally on purpose, dropped a book on my head as she slowly walked past me and proceeded to apologize profusely and take the opportunity to run her hand slowly over the spots on my head and shoulders where the book had hit. She then stuck around and flirted with me awkwardly for the next 5 to 10 minutes before handing me a slip of paper with her email address, in case I ever wanted to study together. Being married, I didn't take her up on her offer. I certainly felt flattered. She wasn't bad looking at all, plus I have a lot of respect for women who have the nerve to make the first move on a guy they like. I just didn't have the heart to tell her that she might want to be a little more subtle next time. It doesn't have to beat a guy over the head with it. Story 15. My dad tells the story of when he was like 9 years old. He was waiting at his school bus stop with a couple of girls that he liked. There was a big rock by him that was like a mini boulder. He told the girls he could throw this rock over a moving car. I guess he wanted them to think he was strong or something. So he waits for a car to drive by, lifts and chucks the giant rock, but instead of going over the car, it crashes into the car's windshield. The car stops and the preacher of his church comes out, super angry. My dad then booked it home. Story 16. So this girl was her class topper for years, and I was always second. In our final year, we found out that I was getting 2 more marks than her overall, so she'd be second for the first time. I saw her sad and almost tearing up, so my idiot self went and told the examiner that I'd been awarded 5 extra marks as a miscalculation, and guess what, the examiner didn't even double check. So yeah, that was one time I sacrificed a personal endeavor for love or crush. She knew what I had done for her in several other instances, but never wanted me back likewise. Oh, I miss those days regardless of the ultra-turbo cringe. You could have been more successful, but instead you gambled it all for nothing. Story 17. A female friend of mine, to whom I was admittedly attracted, had been expressing her reservations about an upcoming vacation with her family. Though it wasn't being overtly presented as such, the trip was meant as a way of re-solidifying her parents' marriage, which had been a touch rocky at the time. They would all be driving from San Francisco to Redding, which is a small town in the middle of absolutely nowhere in Northern California, where they'd stay at a bed and breakfast inn for a weekend before continuing northward for some unknown destination. In keeping with the alleged purpose of this so-called vacation, my friend's parents had booked 2 rooms at the inn. To her dismay, though, my friend discovered that her mother would be occupying one room, her father would have the other, and that she and her sister would have each to bunk with one of their parents. This was worthy of lament on its own, but it was made unforgivably worse by the verbal diarrhea that I offered in an attempt at providing comfort. "Oh, it won't be so bad," I told my friend. "Your father will probably enjoy sleeping with you." A moment passed before I realized what I had said. Then, with a feeling of growing horror, I tried to explain myself. "Wait, I didn't mean it like that," I hurriedly said. "I mean, like, he's probably sick of sleeping with your mom." "No, wait, I just mean that he wants to spend some quality time with his daughter." If I had stopped there, I might have been able to salvage the situation, but As it happened, I decided that the best course of action would be to keep talking. I can't say that I blame him, really. I'd love to sleep with you. She and I don't talk much these days. Story 18. First story. I hoarded a bunch of stuffed animals I won from a local arcade throughout the summer for my crush. One day, I decided I would walk to my crush's house unannounced a few miles down the road and present her with a garbage bag filled with said stuffed animals. She was completely confused as to why I was at her doorstep at night, and she was even more confused when I presented her with a garbage bag. I don't really explain why I brought them to her because I felt the romantic gesture would do the talking. I got the most awkward "thanks," followed by the door being shut in my face. I thought I was such a romantic. Second story. I had a huge crush on this girl in my health class in high school. I so badly wanted to hit on her, but I couldn't find the courage to do it. One day I concocted this brilliant plan to finally tell her how attractive she was without coming off weird. During class, I whispered to her, "Hey, my friends are betting me $4. I won't tell you how hot you are out loud. I'll give you half the money if you let me do it." She gives me a bit of a weird look, but agrees. After class, as we're walking out, I get her attention and audibly tell her, "Wow, you're looking so hot today." Audible enough to give off the impression my friends were watching this cringeworthy exchange take place. She awkwardly thanks me. I slip her $2 and we part ways. As you may have correctly guessed, no one had bet me to call her hot, and I just paid a girl $2 to compliment her out loud. Cringe. Story 19. In first grade, I had a crush on this girl in my class. My nickname at the time was Snakebite. Adults gave it to me. I don't know. Well, I told her my nickname was Snakebite, and it just so turns out that she loves snakes. So we became friends for a while. One day, we were in music class, sitting on the floor, listening to the teacher. I thought this would be the perfect time to serenade her with a song of my people. So I started slithering around her in a circle, making hissing noises. The teacher promptly asked me what on earth I was doing, and embarrassment ensued. Yeah, dude, what on earth were you doing? Story 20. I was like 8 at a roller skating rink, and there was a really cute boy there who maybe was like a year older than me. And I thought that if I kept pace with him, he would eventually talk to me. Well, it turns out he was the most horrible roller skater I've ever seen, and he fell over like almost every 30 feet. I was so determined to keep pace with him that every time he fell, I decided to fall too. I was really good at skating then, so when I came home, Mom was very concerned that I had bruises all over and thought I must have gone into a fight or something. She laughed hysterically when I told her what actually happened, and she still gives me crap for it. Never once did that cute boy talk to me. Can't imagine why. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 21. Not my story, but my roommate's. Back in high school, he took this girl out hiking for the first date. They reached the top of the peak and all is going well. Then my roommate gets a call from his mother telling him he needs to do some chores and she won't take no for an answer. Angry at his mom, my roommate promptly tells the girl, "I gotta go," and speeds off down the mountain. Stunned, the girl just stands there. My roommate comes around the bend, lower down, and makes eye contact with the now furious girl. Unsure of how to respond, my roommate dabs and continues running. Fast forward to the end of the school year. A couple months later, and he sees her for the first time in a while and asks her to sign his yearbook. She proceeds to write, "Every time I see you dab, I want to pass away." That has to be the cringiest thing ever. Story 22. I was about 13. I really liked her, yet had hardly spoken to her all school year. May rolled around and I finally decided to make a move. I show up at school wearing a nice button-up shirt and combed hair. For some reason that escapes me, my dad had me bring a bouquet of roses and a card for her. I kind of left them on her desk when no one was looking. Eventually, I didn't have the courage to ask her out and asked one of my friends to tell her how I feel, that I'd suffer for her and bear her burdens for her and pass away for her if necessary. She kindly turned me down and I ended up crying under my desk. Story 23. The 17-year-old sad and awkward me basically fell straight into the friend zone. I did too many cringy things to list, but here are a few instances. I thought if I made myself indispensable to him, he'd eventually fall for me, so I basically journaled all of his coursework for the entire term on the day before submission. Later that year, he got intoxicated and called me. Somewhere in the rambling, he casually said, "Love ya." You'd not make a big deal of that, right? Wrong. I called him the next day to remind him he said this, and that's not all. I then followed it up with, "I love you too." Yep. So an awkward conversation later, I went on to avoid him for the next year or so. Story 24. My freshman year, I had a crush on a quiet new guy in my class. My English teacher made us write poems all the time, and sometimes she would have us read them out loud. I thought it would be a great idea to write love poems vaguely describing him in hopes, number 1, she would call on me to read it. Number 2, he would recognize that I was abstractly describing him, and number 3, fall in love with my superior writing skills and subsequently me. Never actually read one out loud. Did wind up dating him for 5 months though. Story 25. This was probably my sophomore year in high school. I forgot the name of the class, but we used Adobe Dreamweaver to create websites. Our computers also had another program on them that created cards and brochures. I decided to make a card with a starry night background and a quote about how the stars align and how beautiful she is on it. It was so bad. At the time, I thought it was awesome. When class ended for the day, I walked up to the girl I had a crush on, handed it to her, and said, "Here, I like you. This is for you." A creepy, crackling voice. And I did a 180 and ran away as fast as I could down the halls without getting into trouble. Looking back, I knew I was an idiot. Also, she never spoke to me again after that day. Story 26. I didn't think it was when I did it. Still not sure it was now, but I can see how it would be interpreted as such. I've been on a couple of dates with this woman, chatted a ton by text and phone. Things didn't work out for whatever reason. We reconnected about a year later, went out to dinner, shared a nice kiss in the parking lot, go our separate ways. Happened to be behind her car for a few miles. She pulls into a convenience store parking lot. I pull in behind her, walk up to her as she's getting out of her car and give her another kiss. She accepted it. Then sent me a text later that night explaining that it was super creepy and she doesn't want to see me again. Yeah, what did you think would happen, bro? Story 27. When I was about 8 years old, we took a field trip to the Field Museum here in Chicago. We had a lunch break and I wandered off to the gift shop to see what they had. I had a huge crush on this girl named Victoria in my class, and I saw this Ladybug ring for a couple of dollars. I knew she liked ladybugs, and I had money my parents gave me to buy something at the shop, so I decided to buy the ring and give it to her. I was really nervous and kept waiting for the right time to do it. I eventually decided to just go for it and walked up to her near the end of the trip. She was with some of her friends, which made me more nervous, but I found the courage to do it. I looked at the ring and laughed. Her friends joined her, and she then tossed the ring in the trash. I was completely devastated and tried hard to hold back my tears. Even though I'm over it now, that completely screwed my confidence with girls for a long time. Looking back, I may have embarrassed her by giving it to her in front of her friends, which is why she reacted that way. It's not as cringe as a lot of the stuff here, but it's something that I personally cringe about because it was so embarrassing for me. Story 28. When I was 7, I had a huge crush on this boy named Chris. To get his attention, I wrote him a note telling him I was going to marry him and put a dime in the envelope. You know, to sweeten the pot. My friend and I then proceeded to spend the next few months convincing him to chase us to recess so that I could yell, missed me, now you gotta kiss me." Joke was on me, he did kiss me once, and I was stunned speechless. I never spoke to him again for the rest of the year. Story 29. Back in primary school, 6th grade, I was a boy of about 11 or 12. I had a massive crush on this cute girl. Let's call her Jay. It was 1993. Well, for years I'd been secretly in love with her, but that day I decided to declare myself. I wrote a letter about me and her walking down the street holding hands, looking each other in the eyes and sharing thoughts and a rainbow of feelings, blah, blah, blah. It was really cheesy. I wrote it using a fountain pen and my best calligraphy, which was really good, I have to say, and a piece of scented paper I bought at my local stationery. I spent almost all my monthly allowance in those articles, so imagine how deep in love I was with that girl. Well, I asked one of my friends to give her the letter, which I put inside an overly decorated envelope, but without telling her who wrote it. What did he do? He went straight to her, giving the damn letter and pointing right down at me. At this point, I lose my crap and hide under my table as a small child would do. To further my embarrassment, she decided to read the letter along with her friends. They started laughing out loud and I had to flee to the bathroom to cry alone. I said this before and I'll say it again. Kids are savages, bro. Story 30. I've repressed this memory as far as it will go, and it wasn't brought up until I read this thread. Thanks, Reddit. So I'm 11 years old, 6th grade, and I have a huge crush on this guy. My younger brother, I think he was 6 at the time, decided to blurt it out one day when we were both picking our siblings up from school. My immediate reaction is, I don't. He's a liar. And laugh it off as I drag my brother away. The end, right? Nope. Stupid 11-year-old me decided I should double down on this by writing him a letter. I don't remember exactly what it said, but it was like, don't listen to anything my brother says. He's a liar. Except the liking you part. That's true. I was too scared to give it to him, so I gave it to my friend to be the messenger. The end? Oh no. My friend gave it to him in front of his friends and read it out loud. They'd pass me in the hall and say, he's a liar, but I like you. I basically passed away in 6th grade and rose from the depths of hell the next year. Story 31. So back when I was in high school, I was this little wannabe punk kid and had a crush on this guy who was the lead singer of a decently popular local band. But that was so socially awkward I could never even approach him at a show, let alone try to flirt. Not to mention I was a wildly unpopular, awkward girl. No chance. Fast forward nearly a decade. It's the summer of 2018. I just moved back to my hometown after a few years of living far away. I'm slightly less awkward and have had my late blooming. I find myself lonely, so I decide to see what the local Tinder scene has to offer. Imagine my surprise when I see the musician's face pop up. I swipe right. It's a match, which means that he swiped first. Nice. My opening line? Something along the lines of, my teenage self would be having a fangirl heart attack right now. I mean, it worked. We hooked up a few times. It was fantastic. Ended up in an actual relationship with someone else, though, and so I had to cut things off with him. We're still friends, so I'd say I came out ahead, but I still cringe really hard at how I broke the ice with him. Story 32. When I was in the first grade, I took the bus to school. In my neighborhood, there were several stops pretty much all a block away from each other on the same street. My crush lived near the stop right before mine. One day, I got out at her stop, not even to talk to her, but just to kind of maybe walk near her. Before I even got off the bus, some other kid in my class called me out. Hey, this isn't your stop. Your stop is the next stop. Then the next day and forever, I got off at my regular stop. Story 33. In elementary school, my neighbors and I dug out a series of trenches in the woods that we play in. My older brother had some friends over whom I was eager to impress, so as we went to show them our forts, I decided to run ahead and leap into the nearest one to demonstrate that I was super cool and adventurous. Obviously, this plan would have totally worked wonders and made them all fall in love with me. Except it had poured down the night before, and what I jumped into was actually a 5 to 6 foot deep pit of water and mud. To make matters worse, I couldn't get out because it was so slippery. Once they stopped laughing, they pulled me out and I bolted home, coughing, crying, and slimy. Story 34. I was just 14. He was a family friend and had broken his arm. My mom said I should take him some books to read while he was healing. I wrote a tiny Matchbox-sized note saying, Hi Matthew, I hope you like the books. I really like you, and hid it in one of the books. Never heard anything from him. No idea if he read it or not. When I got my books back, I madly flipped through them, but I couldn't find the note. Fast forward a year and a half, and I lent some books to my best friend. She actually reads them and is like, L? What is this? Brandishing the note. Cue me wanting to pass away. I was mortified. She has never let me live it down. Story 35. When I was in 7th grade, there was a girl me and my friends all thought was the most beautiful at the school. One night, 2 of my friends stayed over at my house. We ended up discussing how incredible this girl is and what, if anything, we can do to make her attracted to us. Hard to fathom, but we collectively decide to call her and sing to her. Our choice, A Whole New World from Aladdin. I know. So we 3 pubescent boys gather our courage as the phone rings. The call goes to voicemail. We belt out our most seductive attempt at the song. The worst part is, this was before we all had cell phones, so yeah, it was on our family's answering machine. She never said a word to us about it. I scarcely remember the embarrassment being around her after that because I have suppressed the heck out of this memory. In fact, I may have even convinced myself that it didn't happen in 8th grade. That would just be too much to bear. Story 36. Back in the 90s, I purchased a set of magnetic poetry that contained some blank magnets and a sheet of rub-on decal letters so you could make some customized words. Of course, I make tiles for my crush's first, middle, and last name, and also Goo Goo Dolls slide, because I convinced myself it was our song. I then created a super cringy poem that I've completely blocked out of my head. I just know it was about how cool he was and that it most likely rhymed and was edgy. During some class activity when we were out of our desks, I stealthily laid out the poem on his desk. Once we were instructed to sit back down, I panicked and was like, I need to take it back. But I couldn't get to his desk in time. He saw and immediately knew it was me. He handled it really well, considering he was totally straight and cool, where I was in a closet gay and nerdy. Story 37. I used to be really into Teen Titans. Like, I would watch it every day. So there was this girl I liked going to homecoming dance. I'd never gone to a dance before, and none of my friends ever wanted to go to them. So I went on my own, dressed in what I thought was my coolest outfit at the time. I had a shirt with a tiger on it and some cargo pants, because that just looked so badass. I'm leaning up against the wall of this small little cafeteria where the dance was taking place, and I just drank soda for an hour, trying to look just so cool. I was looking in the direction of my crush the entire time. I guess she and her friends got talking, so they came over to me. I was playing Chain of Memories on my Game Boy SP at this point, and I didn't notice she had made her way over. When I did, I kind of just froze. She broke the ice by asking if I wanted to dance. She asked me to dance. Mission accomplished, right? Nah. Call me Titanic because this is where I go under. You remember how I like Teen Titans, right? Well, I thought Robin was the coolest and wanted to be him. So when she asked me to dance, I quoted him verbatim by saying, I don't dance. I'm the best impression of him. Clearly wanting to give me another shot, bless her heart, the girl asked me why I don't dance. This is when I literally look away from her and give a 1,000-yard stare. I think I'm nailing it at this point. I then quoted Robin again and said, tried it once, didn't like it. This girl and her friends gave me the worst look you could imagine before walking away from me. I was positive I looked awesome. She literally danced to the next guy that talked to her. And I feel like a black hole was formed in my chest. You had a chance that all of us nerds dreamed of as a child, and you blew it. You blew it. Story 38. Not exactly the same thing, but this brought back cringe-inducing memories. I went to a middle or high school dance alone and met this beautiful girl a year below me. We hit it off and danced all night until our parents picked her up. The next day at school, I was psyching myself up to find her and talk to her again, so I played a game. God, if I see her in the next 5 seconds, it's not meant to be. Otherwise, we'll be together forever. Or something equally cringe. 5, 4, 3, 2. Of course, just then, she turned the corner. My eyes grew huge. I was so shocked, and I just ducked my head and hurried past her. She ducked her head and hurried past too. Every time we saw each other in the hallway after that, we would duck our heads and hurry past me with butterflies in my stomach. Story 39. In 5th grade, I wrote a love note poem to my crush and cut it into the shape of a heart, and literally did stipple shading on the heart with a red pen to make it sort of shade or fade onto the words of the strongest value in the edges of the heart. Then I cut it into a puzzle, put it into an envelope, and gave it to my good guy friend. Our moms were best friends, who was in the same 6th grade class as my crush, entrusting him to deliver it secretly to my crush. My guy friend had the envelope half hanging out of her little elementary desks with open storage underneath, and the witch of a teacher snatched it up and asked whose it was. No one answered since I wasn't even in their same grade, let alone class. So she put the puzzle together, graded it for my bad grammar and using a lot instead of a lot, and displayed it outside her classroom door for everyone to see until someone confessed. I didn't write my name on it, but walking by it every day with my class, we had to walk in lines, gave me freaking anxiety attacks, and the boy I had a crush on never had a clue. He was totally aloof and goofy, and to this day is a bit immature, even in our 30s. I cringe that I put in that much effort just to be humiliated by an evil teacher, and all for nothing. No appreciation of my ink stipple, effort, or overall creativity. Thanks, Janice. I never forgave you. Story 40. Oh man, so many. I was, and still am, Lord of the Tryhards. The two that come to mind. When I was in 3rd grade, I was the new kid, and I learned that I could play up the fact that I had left my friends and girlfriend behind for attention from other girls. We went on a field trip to Williamsburg, VA, and I bought a small silver necklace in the shape of a feather, and intentionally, I looked really sad and rushed past the cutest girl and shoved it into her hands and said something like, I don't even know what to do with this. I can't even give it to a girlfriend anymore. Hoping that would cinch my emotionally tortured and interesting act. It did not. That girl went on to be very nice and pretty, and I went on to be very fat and not pretty. Another time, my family was at the beach in Ocean Isle, NC, and I was like 12. My older, cooler, 16-year-old cousin was trying to teach me how to talk to girls. She spotted some maybe 14-year-olds sitting on their porch that was like 40 feet in the air since it's on stilts. I'm on the ground and he encourages me to talk to them to get a taste of just diving in. We made some small talk and it doesn't go anywhere, so he tactfully has us retreat. I probably went back like 4 times, trying to strike up conversation while he begged me to chill. The first girl who ever reciprocated affection for me when I was like 16 regretted it horribly. This was like 2003 at the height of emo, which she was into the aesthetic and I was not. And we had built our budding romance on the idea that we were both messed up souls with unhappy home lives, and she had said stuff to make me feel like I was the only one she could talk to about stuff, etc. What she didn't know is that I had real emotional support issues, and while it was a romantic game to her, I was leaning on her very hard to fill a void in my 16-year-old life due to some legitimate family issues. We talked often. I had a lot on AIM and on the phone. One day she didn't answer her phone and I called back a few times and I got worried and called back more. In my head I was committing to the act, showing my concern for her. It became kind of a blur, but a couple hours later I'd called like 30 times. She called me back, really worried, and it creeped that way because of how much I'd been calling her. We sort of awkwardly agreed it was best we didn't really pursue things anymore. I have so many more. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're gonna love this. Catch you in that video.